I have watched people spend half their lives chasing a bigger number and still wake up with the same anxiety they had when they were young. They imagine money as a finish line. They imagine that if they can just earn a little more, buy a little more, show a little more, then the rest of life will settle down. They think the stress will fade, the fear will disappear, the comparisons will stop, and their mind will finally become quiet. I have never seen it work that way. The first thing I learned about money was not how to make it. It was how people think about it. That is where almost every financial life is won or lost, not in formulas, not in spreadsheets, not in secret deals. It begins in the private conversation you have with yourself every day about what is enough, what success means, what other people seem to have, and what you believe your own life should look like. Most people do not go broke because they are stupid. They go broke because they are pulled. They are pulled by comparison. They are pulled by status. They are pulled by the fantasy that one more purchase, one more raise, one more upgrade, one more visible sign of success will finally make them feel secure. It rarely does. When I was young, the picture of being rich was simple. You did not need a private jet or an island to feel that someone had made it. In a modest town, a newer truck, a bigger house, or a little extra room to breathe was enough to create that impression. Today, the measuring stick has become insane. It is no longer your neighbor or your coworker. It is the most polished version of everyone, all day, every day, pushed into your face by machines designed to stretch your expectations until ordinary life feels like failure. That is not a small change. It is one of the most expensive psychological shifts of our time. If you compare yourself to the entire world, you will always feel poor. If you let an algorithm define what a normal life should look like, your desires will outrun your income no matter how much you make. It does not matter whether you earn $50,000 a year or $5 million. If your expectations move faster than your means, you will live with the permanent sensation of falling behind. And that feeling is expensive. It is expensive when it convinces you to rent more apartment than you need, because it matches the person you want strangers to think you are. It is expensive when it convinces you to finance a car that does nothing for your future and everything for your vanity. It is expensive when it tells you that a vacation you could have enjoyed is not enough unless it becomes a performance. It is expensive when it turns money. That is what I want people to understand. Money is useful. Money matters. Money can absolutely improve your life. It can buy time. It can reduce stress. It can protect your family. It can widen your choices. It can give you the right to walk away from bad situations. But the moment you use it mainly to rank yourself against others, it starts working against you. It stops being a servant and becomes a judge. And judges, I have met people with enormous incomes who had no independence at all. Every dollar they earned was already spoken for. Their lifestyle was so inflated, their obligations so heavy, their identity so tied to appearances that they were trapped by abundance. They looked rich, they felt poor. I have also met people with modest means who had something much rarer. They had space, they had margin, they had enough put aside to think clearly. They were not compelled to impress anybody. They were not one emergency away from panic. They could sleep. They could say no. They could choose. That, to me, has always been closer to real wealth. Rich is having money coming in. Wealth is having money you do not have to spend. Rich can be loud. Wealth is often quiet. Rich is visible in the driveway. Wealth is invisible in the bank account, the investment account, the absence of desperation, the ability to wait, and the freedom to make decisions on your own terms. That distinction changes everything. A lot of people spend years trying to increase their income without ever asking a harder question. What am I trying to buy with this money besides the thing itself? Very often the answer is not utility. It is emotional. It is a craving to feel admired, respected, safe, envied, healed, or finally equal to somebody else. That is why so much spending fails. It is trying to solve the wrong problem. If a person is lonely, ashamed, insecure, bored, restless, angry, or embarrassed by their own life, a new purchase can produce a brief chemical lift. It feels like relief. But when the emotional surge fades, the bill remains. If the purchase was made on debt, the bill remains with interest. Then the object that was supposed to make you feel bigger becomes a chain on your future. I have always looked at debt in a very simple way. Every dollar of debt is a piece of your future that belongs to somebody else. It is your time already promised away. It is labor you have not yet done but have already committed. It is future freedom sold in advance. Savings are the reverse. Every dollar saved is a piece of your future. You have reclaimed. It is an option you now possess. It is a little more margin if the job disappears, a little more calm if the car breaks down, a little more dignity if illness shows up, a little more ability to tell the truth in a bad meeting because you are not terrified of losing the next paycheck. People often talk about saving as delayed gratification. I have never thought of it that way. If I save $100 today, I do not feel that I lost $100 of enjoyment. I feel that I bought $100 of independence right now. Tonight I will sleep differently because I know my life is a little less fragile than it was this morning. That is not delayed pleasure. That is immediate psychological return. This is one reason small savings matter so much more than people think. Someone says, "What is the point of saving $20? It will not change my life." That statement sounds practical, but it hides a bad assumption. It assumes financial independence is a switch that turns on only when you are suddenly rich. That is not how it works. Independence exists on a spectrum. Every single dollar you keep widens that spectrum slightly in your favor. $20 may not retire you. It may not transform your net worth in a month, but it is still $20 of future strain that now belongs to you instead of the world. It is still one step away from helplessness. It is still one little act of self-respect. Repeated over months and years, that attitude matters far more than the amount itself. Most big financial transformations start as tiny changes in identity. A person does not first become wealthy on paper. They first become the kind of person who values margin, who stops needing every dollar to prove something, who begins to understand that freedom is built from habits that look boring while they are happening. That is why so much of personal finance is behavior rather than intelligence. I have seen people with extraordinary education make ruinous decisions because they could not control envy, impatience, ego, or lifestyle inflation. I have seen ordinary workers with no special credentials and no access to exclusive information build durable security simply because they lived a little below their means, saved consistently, stayed patient, and refused to let their desires spiral beyond what their life actually required. There is nothing glamorous about that. That is why it works. The world is full of products designed to seduce your impatience. Credit cards, buy, now pay, ladder offers, upgrades, status purchases, social pressure disguised as normal living. The system does not need you to understand money. In many ways, it benefits when you do not. Ignorance is expensive because it makes you easy to direct. You buy before thinking. You commit before calculating. You want before asking whether you wanted the thing or the image attached to the thing. That is why awareness matters so much. Most people in trouble with money could not tell you with precision what comes in each month, what goes out each month, and where the leak really is. They know they are stressed, but they do not know the arithmetic of their own life. Until you know that, improvement remains abstract. Once you know it, change becomes possible. I have always believed in making money visible to yourself. Know your balance, know your spending, know your habits. Not because that is exciting, but because ignorance is what keeps small mistakes from feeling expensive until they become large mistakes that cannot be ignored. There is another problem that does even more damage than ignorance. I have come to think that much of happiness is simply the gap between expectations and reality. The wider the gap, the more miserable you tend to feel. If your life is decent but your expectations are wild, you will feel deprived. If your life is imperfect but your expectations are grounded, you may feel surprisingly content. Contentment has become a misunderstood word. People hear it and think it means having no ambition. I do not believe that. You can want to earn more, build more, improve more, and still keep your expectations in check. You can pursue progress without worshiping more. Those are not opposites. In fact, the person who can do both usually gets farther because they are not constantly panicking, performing, or sabotaging themselves. The trouble begins when ambition outruns satisfaction so completely that every result only moves the goalpost farther away. A person tells himself he will feel secure once he has $10,000. Then he gets there and decides the real number is $100,000, then a bigger house, then a better neighborhood, then a class of experiences the previous version of him would have considered absurd. The appetite grows faster than the satisfaction. That is one of the hardest traps in money because from the outside it can look like success, while from the inside it feels like permanent insufficiency. Enough is one of the most underrated financial skills in the world. If you cannot define enough, then no amount of income will give you peace. If you can define enough, then even moderate resources can create genuine security. I have known people who felt richer with $5,000 in the bank than they later felt with sums far larger than that. Why? Because money is never just it is measured against the life you think you need in order to feel fine. Lower the required number, and the same dollars become more powerful. Raise the required number without thinking, and even large balances start to feel inadequate. That is why desiring less can be as powerful as earning more. Not because life should be joyless, not because you should live like a monk, but because many of the things people chase are not actually making them happier. They are making them busier, more comparative, more indebted, or more fragile. A calmer standard of living often does more for long-term well-being than another visible upgrade. There is a useful question I wish more people asked before spending. Am I buying this to improve my life, or am I buying it to improve my image in the minds of other people? Most spending falls into one of those two buckets. Food for the family, a reliable home, a practical tool, time-saving help when it truly matters, a trip that strengthens your relationships, an experience that you will actually remember. Those can improve life. A purchase aimed at impressing people who are not paying attention is something else entirely. One of the funniest truths about status is that other people are not thinking about you nearly as much as you imagine. You may see someone in an expensive car and think for a moment that the car is impressive, but you do not spend the rest of the day admiring the owner. You go right back to thinking about your own life. Yet millions of people buy things as if strangers are going to sit around assigning them value. That is not how human attention works. People are usually too busy worrying about themselves. Once you understand that, a lot of unnecessary spending starts to look absurd. You begin to ask better questions. If nobody could see this, would I still want it? If there were no social reward, would this still matter? If this did not photograph well, would I still believe it improved my life? Those are expensive questions if you avoid them. The same logic applies to investing. A great many people believe successful investing is about brilliance, predictions, complexity, or access to superior information. The truth is much simpler and much more frustrating. In investing, patience matters more than people want it. Simplicity matters more than people want it to. Temperament matters more than people want it to. Compounding does not reward excitement. It rewards endurance. If you earn returns on your money and then earn returns on those returns, the process starts slowly and then becomes powerful. But the key variable is not just return, it is duration. How long can you keep the machine running without interrupting it through fear, greed, vanity, panic, or unnecessary complexity? That is why average results sustained for an above-average period of time can become extraordinary. You do not have to be the smartest investor in the room. You do not have to beat every professional. You do not need a portfolio full of cleverness. You need a system you can stick with when markets are boring, when markets are frightening, when everyone else seems to be getting rich faster, and when your own emotions beg you to do something dramatic. I have always preferred boring that survives. Own productive assets, keep costs low, invest regularly. Avoid turning the portfolio into a theater for your intelligence. Keep enough cash or safe reserves to sleep at night. Accept that volatility is the fee you pay for long-term returns. Then wait. The spreadsheet may tell you to take more risk. The internet may tell you that anything less than maximized returns is foolish. But a portfolio is not being run by a spreadsheet. It is being run by a human nervous system. If you cannot stay with it, it is too aggressive for you. Money exists to support a good life, not to produce a higher score while you lie awake, wondering whether you have made a mistake. That is an idea people resist because the culture celebrates optimization. I have never cared much for optimization if it destroys peace. I would rather have a sensible plan that I can follow than an idealized plan I abandon the first time the world becomes uncomfortable. There is also a hidden emotional advantage in simplicity. The simpler the strategy, the fewer levers you are tempted to pull. The fewer levers you pull, the lower the chance you sabotage compounding. Complexity invites ego. Ego invites motion. Motion often taxes returns. Simple, patient, automatic behavior is not exciting enough for television, but it has built more durable wealth than excitement ever will. If I had to reduce most good financial advice to a few lines, it would sound childish in its simplicity. Spend less than you make, keep your expectations from running wild, save consistently. Treat savings as necessary, not optional. Invest in simple, productive assets. Be patient for decades. Do not use money mainly to impress strangers. Remember that every dollar has a job. Either it is buying image or it is buying freedom. That is almost the whole thing. And freedom is the point. Not riches for their own sake. Not applause, not the privilege of looking expensive. Freedom, freedom to walk away. Freedom to say no. Freedom to survive surprises. Freedom to choose work you respect. Freedom to protect your family when life does, what life always does, and becomes harder than expected. Because life is fragile. Careers are fragile. Health is fragile. Economies are fragile. Relationships can change. Jobs disappear. Costs rise. Emergencies come without warning. In a stable fantasy world, perhaps savings would feel optional. In the real world, they are one of the most compassionate things you can do for your future self. I have always thought of savings as a kindness sent forward in time. The person you become 10 years from now may have different worries than you have today. He may be tired, he may be sick, he may be unemployed, he may be caring for children or parents, he may be standing in the middle of an economic storm. Every dollar you keep now is a message to that future person. I did not forget you. I left you a little room to breathe. That is why I cannot take seriously the idea that saving is just money sitting around doing nothing. Properly understood, savings are doing one of the most important jobs in the world. They are reducing fragility. They are giving you options. They are buying sleep. They are preserving dignity. They are narrowing the distance between panic and stability. Wealth, in the deepest sense, is not about displaying power. It is about reducing helplessness. And if you understand that, a lot of financial behavior begins to simplify. You no longer need every visible symbol of success because you understand that invisible strength is more useful. You no longer need to chase every person who appears ahead of you because you understand that comparison has no finish line. You no longer need to make your life look expensive because you are more interested in making your life resilient. You no longer need to confuse rich with wealthy. You no longer need to believe that one more purchase will fix an emotional hole that only self-awareness can address. You no longer need money to shout on your behalf. By the time I was older, I had seen enough to know that money solves some problems beautifully and fails completely at solving others. It can buy comfort, it can buy time, it can buy options, it can buy medical care, safety, education, and relief from many forms of stress. But it cannot settle an identity built on comparison. It cannot permanently calm a person whose expectations are untethered. It cannot fill a psychological hole created by insecurity, envy, or the need for approval. If those are the real wounds, then more money simply gives them a larger stage. This is why some rich people are miserable and some modest people are remarkably grounded. The question is not only how much money you have, the question is what story you have attached to it. If the story is that money proves your worth, you will never have enough. If the story is that money lets you control other people's opinions, you will be disappointed. If the story is that money gives you permission to overreach, overspend, and outperform every comparison, then it will become a source of strain. But if the story is that money is a tool for independence, prudence, generosity, resilience, and a life that fits your real values, then even modest progress can feel meaningful. Then saving $50 can matter, then patience matters, then restraint matters. Then the absence of spectacle stops feeling like failure. I have always preferred that version of the story. There is a reason truly strong financial lives often look ordinary from the outside. They are built on habits that attract little applause, less envy, fewer upgrades, more margin, more patience, more cash than the optimizers recommend, more respect for uncertainty, more gratitude, less theater. It is not an accident that these qualities also tend to support a better life. A good financial life is not one where the spreadsheet is happiest. It is one where the person is steadier, one where the family is protected, one where decisions are made with less fear, one where ambition is allowed but not worshipped, one where enough is recognized before life is wasted chasing a moving target. That is the kind of wealth I have always admired. Not the loud kind, the useful kind. The kind that lets you wake up and say, I do not need to pretend. I do not need to impress. I do not need to panic. I do not need to sell my future for a little status today. I can think clearly. I can wait. I can choose. That is what money is for. And once you understand that, you stop asking whether you look rich. You start asking whether you are free.